Hello everyone. It's been 2 months since Russia started its full-blown invasion of Ukraine. During this time we've seen multiple war crimes committed by Russian invaders. Some of the revelations became possible as the invaders had to withdraw from the Ukrainian villages, towns and cities they had previously occupied. Especially horrendous was the Bucha massacre, named after Bucha, a small town in the Kiev region. The Bucha massacre shocked the world, with the graphic images of mass graves, of tortured and mutilated bodies, of executed civilians with their hands bound behind their backs, of streets covered with the corpses. The number of Ukrainian civilians slaughtered by the Russians only in Bucha exceeds 400. This makes the Russian Bucha crime more flagrant than any single massacre during the Croatian War of Independence in the 90s, including the notorious Vukovar massacre. But Bucha was not the only place where Ukrainians discovered the spine-chilling evidence of the Russian genocidal war crimes on occupied territories. Borodyanka, Gostomel, Irpin, to name just a few other places. And we are still not aware of the full extent of the Russian crime in Mariupol. According to various reports, up to 20,000 civilians might have already been killed there. If true, it's already 3 times more than the number of civilians killed during the siege of Sarajevo that's lasted for almost 4 years. Imagine, just within 2 months of the Russian full-blown invasion, Mariupol has already suffered more than the Bosnian capital Sarajevo during 40 months of the Serbian siege. When the first videos and pictures from Bucha emerged, I was in Budapest observing Hungarian parliamentary elections there. After the end of the vote, my colleagues and I first visited the headquarters of the United Opposition, and then we went to see the celebrations of the Fidesz party of Prime Minister Viktor Orban. There we had an opportunity to talk to Fidesz voters, and I couldn't help but ask the people that we talked to about their attitudes towards the Russian invasion of Ukraine. As an observer, I wasn't trying to argue with anyone. I just wanted to know what people thought. I found nobody who would openly support the invasion, but one answer truly surprised me. One person said that Russia and Ukraine should reach a compromise through diplomacy. And I thought to myself, what would a compromise on the Russian genocide of Ukrainians look like? Meeting halfway? Would Ukrainians have to agree that the Russians commit their genocidal massacres on and every second city, town or village they occupy? Many Westerners on social media expressed their hope that the revelations about the Russian war crimes in Bucha and other Ukrainian places would somehow shock the Russian authorities, force them to come to their senses and stop the war of aggression against Ukraine. For long-time Russia watchers, this Western optimism driven by rationalism was completely unfounded. And the Kremlin wasted little time before killing these optimistic, if not naive, hopes. Following the international outcry about the Bucha massacre, Russian chief war criminal Vladimir Putin gave an honorary title to the brigade that committed the crime, praising that gang of rapists, murderers and butchers for what he called mass heroism and courage. Moreover, Putin promoted the commander of that gang from a lieutenant colonel to a full colonel, thus encouraging other Russian invaders to further commit war crimes with impunity. The day after the photographic evidence of the Bucha massacre emerged, the Russian state-controlled domestic news agency RIA Novosti published an article titled "What Russia Should Do with Ukraine." The article effectively admitted that the Russian war crimes in Bucha and elsewhere in Ukraine were not military excesses or collateral damage at all, but part of the Russian strategy aimed at eradicating the Ukrainian nation. According to Moscow's plan, Ukrainian national elites need to be eliminated. Ukraine must cease to exist and be broken into several areas occupied by Russia that would erase Ukrainian national self-awareness through imprisonment, re-education and censorship. And after the eradication of the Ukrainian national identity, the masses would be assimilated to what the author of the plan called Russian civilization. Of course, there has never been a shortage of Russian genocidal fantasies about Ukraine, but until recently they were confined in published form to the margins of the Russian discourse. Now these fantasies have become an actual, undisguised plan of programmatic genocide. And yet, even in Germany, we have voices calling upon Ukraine to surrender to Russia, as if they do not understand that the Ukrainian nation is not only fighting for its sovereignty, independence and freedom, but also for its physical survival. We know already what the Russian occupation of Ukrainian cities, towns and villages leads to. Look at Bucha, Borodyanka, Irpin. Read the Russian plans of genocide of Ukrainians. They're not even hiding anything anymore. History will judge mercilessly against those Western officials who are procrastinating in the face of the Russian genocidal invasion of Ukraine or are even bankrolling it. But there are those in the West who are perfectly aware of the Russian intentions with regard to Ukraine and who have chosen the right side of history. And it's not only providing Ukraine with defensive and, importantly, offensive weapons to defeat the enemy. Parliaments of brave Estonia and Latvia have already recognized the actions of the Russian armed forces in Ukraine as a genocide against the Ukrainian people. I hope that other Western nations will follow suit in the coming days or weeks. And of course, the Russian army should be recognized as a criminal organization. Every year in January, on the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, we remember millions of Jews murdered before and during the Second World War. Shot, gassed, burned alive, starved and beaten to death. This is the day when our leaders say, never again. It's easy for them to say never again. They don't have to fight the Third Reich. It's gone and will never be back. They don't need to oppose the Shoah. It happened in the past. But the genocidal invasion of Ukraine is happening right now. And yet too few in the West are ready to match the words never again with action. These words are easy when you symbolically fight a past genocide. But when you see a genocide happening right before your eyes, they're useless without an action.